Welcome to Biztech's CEO Conversation Show, the show where we engage industry leaders to share insights into how they run and grow their organizations. Today, our conversation is with Chow Tak Man, the head of Yoodo. Now, welcome to the show, Tak Man.
Thanks, Brian. Nice to meet you.
Now, Tak Man, before we start, could you give us an overview about Yoodo?
Sure. Yoodo is Malaysia's first truly customizable and 100% digital mobile service, right? So what it means is that we allow people to customize their plans, and it's part of our intention, right? To make people have the opportunity to do their own line.
Okay, and you are part of Axiata, correct?
Yes, we are part of Celcom Axiata.
Now, would you be defined as an MVNO then?
We are sort of a pseudo MVNO, right? Actually, we are part of the Celcom group, right? The Celcom team, but
Right.
we are run separately. That means we run independently. We are like a corporate startup.
Okay, so could you give the audience an insight into what a mobile virtual network operator is all about?
Sure. Mobile virtual network operator, or on MVNO, is basically a network service provider that rides, or service provider that rides on the infrastructure of a MNO, a mobile network operator, to deliver their own services. So basically, the MVNOs have a business agreement with the MNOs, and it will likely, these MVNOs will likely have their own customer service, billing support systems, marketing and sales teams, and other resources to run the company.
Okay, now what was the motivation behind Axiata setting you up? Because after all, Axiata and Celcom Group itself, Celcom has other customers who are MVNOs.
Yes. Well, there are a few reasons, right? Two main reasons, actually. One is to do with digitization, right? At that time when it was set up, it was the era of digitization, right? So everybody thought of, okay, how do you digitize a company? How do you make the main brand more digital? And one approach that Celcom decided to take was to start a separate entity on its own, right? So in a sense, is to meet that shift towards digitization. It was meant to be built differently from other telcos, prioritizing digital first and targeting the digital savvy generation. So it was basically a brand that's digital at its core, focusing on the digital natives. Second reason that Yoodo was started was to provide a new value proposition for the modern consumer. So I think this generation of customers are quite different. These modern consumers, we call them the modern consumers, and we feel that they are strongly opinionated, right? They want to make their own choices. They prefer personalization. So that's something that we thought that, with a new proposition, a new brand proposition, is something that we could work on.
What does this modern consumer look like? So obviously that's your strategy. What is your customer profile?
Yeah, we have two terms that we use. One is either the modern consumer or the digital natives, right? So we sort of interchange it slightly. Why we say so is that a digital natives is someone that's comfortable using an app, using the latest technology to, I suppose, manage a bit of their life. Every Yoodo customer must have the app. Without the app, you don't have a line. So that's the first thing, right? So it's 100. That's why we say it's 100% digital. You manage your line from the app. You register your line. You change your plans every month, for all via the app.
So we can change our plans every month.
Yes, you can change it every day actually if you wanted to, but you will lose out because it's a monthly cycle. We allow you to change every month. But of course, if you change every month, whatever you bought for that cycle, you lose it, right? Okay. So you can change it as much as you want. So maybe I missed out in the beginning a bit about Yoodo, right? Is that we allow you to choose your own data, voice, and SMS. Okay. That means any combination. So most telcos, what they will do is that they will have plans, right? They will have different plans, maybe 10 to 20 plans in the market. But for our case, we let the customer choose their own data, voice, and SMS. So that means, for example, you could choose 10 gigabytes of data, certain amount of voice, certain amount of SMS. Your other friends could be choosing something else. and you could also change it every month. And on top of that, we also had different, I suppose, different things like an add-on. We call it an add-on, which is a data bucket for specific apps like a WhatsApp, a TikTok, a Facebook, a Netflix.
Okay.
Right? So that means you can choose different combinations. And at the moment, we have more than 2 million combinations to choose from. So
okay, and what's the age demographic? So this is a really young audience then.
It is. So when we say, we target the digital natives, right? The digital natives would most likely be the Generation Y and Generation Z.
Okay.
Right? So that means if you look at the profile, if you want to go back to age, right, it's probably 18 to 40, but we call it more the digital natives. So we say the Gen Y, Gen X, Gen Y and Gen Z. But having said that, we also see some of the Gen X also coming on board, because some are also very savvy, right? A person like me also, I'm pretty savvy, right? I'm so comfortable with devices and and so on, right? So and I'm Gen X. I can say I'm a younger Gen X. But if you go back to the target audience, so it's the Gen Y and Gen Zs. Yeah.
Okay. Now, can you tell us what your go-to-market strategy has been? Because you're a late player in the market, obviously. You've only been around, if I'm not mistaken, since 2018.
Yeah.
What has been your customer acquisition strategy?
So we've been around for 3 years plus, right? And it's not easy, right? Because the telco industry in Malaysia is pretty competitive, and there are a few MNOs and many MVNOs, right? So how do you differentiate ourselves? So one way we look at is that there are 3 ways, right? Just now when I started off, I said Yoodo was customizable and digital, right? So those are the 2 main value propositions. I think the customizable part, which is the part that you're able to choose your own data, voice, and SMS, is not available within the other telcos.
Right.
It's like I said, most telcos, they do have a good combination of plans, right? But it's basically you choose. This is the amount, right? But for our case, you really can choose whatever combination you want, and the app itself will calculate the price for you. So you pay it every month. If you decide to change it, you can change it. So that's one way we approach the market. We call ourselves customizable. And then the other part is the digital portion. I think during these COVID times, people are scared to go out. You don't need to go out to get the Yoodo line at all, right? What it means is that the SIM cards are sent to you via post, normal delivery, but you can pay for express delivery. So express delivery will be within 2 hours, you'll get it in Klang Valley. In Klang Valley, you get it within 2 hours.
So, Takman, you mean I can basically decide, I want a Yoodo account. I go to Google Play Store, I download the app,
yes,
and I can order a SIM and it's sent to me.
Yes. Yep. So that usually takes 1 to 3 days, depending on where you are in Malaysia, right? And so on. But again, like I said, if you are in the major cities of Klang Valley, Penang, and JB, you can get this within 2 hours. And if you have the latest phones, right, latest iPhones, latest Samsung phones, whereby you have the eSIM capability, you can even register a line within 2 minutes. That's one difference, right? Just now I said customizable, the digital component. Now there's one third part that we tend to push for in terms of our marketing strategy. We focus on lifestyle segments. What does this mean? It goes back to what the Gen Ys and Gen Zs like. At the end of the day, right? They are, like I said, this generation is opinionated. This generation likes personalization. This generation knows what they want, right? And they are interested in specific lifestyles, such as eSports and gaming, right? Music and entertainment, even active sports, and also K-pop. So these are areas that we target, right? These are areas that we heavily focus on in our marketing approach and activities to build a brand and at the same time to engage the audience.
Okay, and also then retention is a big part of being a telco, because there's a lot of churn in the telco industry. And especially among the young subscribers that you basically target. What sort of loyalty and retention stuff do you do to keep these subscribers?
Well, first thing, the main thing about customers nowadays, there are a few components to it, right? One's, of course, price itself, right? You must always be competitive. If you are not competitive enough, they will start thinking about leaving you, they won't come to you. So that's one component. Second part is really the lifestyle segment portion. Let me give you some examples. So for example, in terms of esports, if you are, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the esports industry in Malaysia, but if you are into mobile esports, most people, let's put it this way, most people who are in mobile esports will know the name Yoodo, because we engage in terms of, we are involved in tournaments. Okay. We have our own esport teams, right, which have represented Malaysia, won Southeast Asia championships in games.
Yes, like I read Mobile, about that. Yeah.
Right. PUBG Mobile, which is the most popular game in Malaysia. Yeah. Then Mobile Legends is the second most popular mobile game in Malaysia. We are heavily involved in this, not just in tournaments. We're involved in teams. We're involved in the casters, in the community. So that's how we engage our base, right? And that's how we keep that so-called fan base or that loyalty to it, right? And of course, the third part is about the customer experience itself, right? We would like to think that our app has a very good digital journey, allows you to change at any time, allows you to make payments easily, right? Allows you to even recommend a friend, right? If you recommend a friend, you get something as a referrer. So those kind of things, right, okay, keeps the customers to our base.
Okay. Let's zoom out a little bit and take a macro look at the industry currently. Now, what are some of the challenges facing the industry in Malaysia right now?
Well, one item is regarding, if you talk about the telco industry, one item is regarding providing good and fast internet service to the customers. I think most telcos are doing okay in that aspect, right? But the challenge has been, especially during the COVID times, right, when everything has gone online. So the resilience of the network is something that is a challenge to the industry at the moment. I think the industry is doing well to face that challenge, but it's something that is really, you put it this way, the people are at home, people are going online, classes are online, meetings are online. So naturally, data consumption is very high, right? So that is one major challenge of the industry.
But then we've got 5G that's being rolled out, and that should change the game in that aspect somewhat. But how would that impact a player like Yoodo?
Okay, maybe if you don't mind, I just mention a bit about 5G first, right? 5G is likely to deliver, what do you call it, the gigabytes data speed, right? That means the very high speeds. But it's not just about that, right? It's about ultra low latency, you're having more reliability, higher network capacity, increased availability, and basically at the end of the day, a better user experience. So it's just about how a telco would now use that, right? So for our case, what we would be looking at is how to provide more innovative products and features based on that. Because, for example, we are a bit recognized as a gaming telco, right, because of how heavily we involve in esports, and gaming. So with 5G, it is likely that we will be able to provide even more enhanced playing and viewing experience, right? So that's an important component. It helps us build that aspect of being a stronger telco for esports, for gaming, right? The other thing is about, you are now able to customize. Our strength is customization. So it's likely that we will be able to customize specific packages for 5G, right? Okay. Maybe packages that are just specifically for IoT, packages that are just for specific speeds, right? Packages for certain things. So I think that would fit into our capabilities, right? Which is able to customize things, and that will fit nicely.
Okay. Now, Tekman, I want to zoom in on you now. You've got a very interesting background. You have engineering degrees from Cambridge, you have an MBA from INSEAD. You have a career that has spanned working in Lafarge Cement to running your own tech startup to working in Philip Morris. You worked in Gokoland, which is a property developer, and then you came into the tech space in Axiata Group. What have been your learnings from working in those diverse industries?
It's been a pretty interesting, I suppose, from my perspective, an interesting career, and each part has taught me things, right? Since you've gone through my background, maybe I'll also go through it, right? I think there are a few areas that I've learned or picked up, in a sense. In terms of Lafarge, right, it's an MNC, right? You start to realize how an MNC operates, right? They have best practices that are applied across countries and so on. So those are things that you tend to learn, right? In terms of doing my own startup, you really pick up the part about adaptability and resilience. It's not easy to be running a startup. At this moment, Yoodo for us we term it as a corporate startup. So I have the corporate portion, right? So you have the pros and cons of the corporate portion.
Yeah.
But which is good in the sense that that's why I tell my team, right? When you are running a corporate startup, you don't have to worry too much about your salary. It's going to come in, right?
That's right.
But when I was running my own tech startup, that was a major concern, right? How do I pay my staff? Right? Even though I had initial investors and so on for my own startup, it was difficult because after a while you realize that you need the revenue coming in, you need this coming in, you need to manage the cost, but at the same time you need to grow the brand, right? So that's the other thing that that I've learned, right? It's about managing the cost in the startup all the time, about how do you keep your employees motivated, right? Yeah, I suppose that's it. In terms of the other experience that I enjoyed was, of course, in Axiata, right? And that's where I got exposure to the telco industry, and of course to the technology side of things.
So now you're in a corporate startup. You've got a team of 50 plus employees in a team. How are you extracting superior performance out of them?
First thing is that, again, I'm going to use the corporate startup, right? We want to balance the corporate part and the startup part. What I mean here is that we're trying to take the pros from each, right? The startup part has this, you want people to generate ideas. You want people to be running fast, right? Not too worried, be a bit more aggressive, a bit more dynamic, right? Then from the challenge as a corporate, from the corporate side, then there will be processes which are not wrong, right? Which you will need, right, to manage and so on. So the thing about this is that I have team members who are some from the corporate background and some a bit more startup-ish kind of background. So it's about taking the strengths of each person, right? So for example, I'll give you an example, right? In my commercial team, I have team members who are very gung-ho, very, they have a lot of ideas. They have all sorts of things that they want to try, right? But when we first started out like that, there are risks, right? You try things, you jump ahead of certain things, right? And you realize, oh no, we may have forgotten to look into a few matters before we implement it, right? But then I decided that, okay, I'm going to mix it up with a bit more corporate kind of person, a bit more structured and planning kind of person, right? To balance it out, because you do need that. I mean, we are a company after all. We will need to have that kind of capabilities to be able to plan, to be able to structure it a bit better, right? But that's where I look at it. I take the strengths of both the different people, right? Everyone has their own strengths. So I don't look too much at the weakness. I try to work on their weaknesses, but I mainly concentrate on their strengths. And that's where you pull the good parts, I suppose, to be able to grow a company.
Let me ask you, what were your numbers like in 2020? Your subscribers, your churn rate, your ARPU?
Okay. I will tell you that I will not review it fully, right? Because I've not mentioned that. We don't usually mention that. Let's talk about subscriber numbers, right? First thing, I can tell you the growth, which is that when compared to 2019, to 2020, in terms of revenue, we have grown about 52%, sorry. And then in terms of subscribers, we've grown 59%, right? Then in terms of subscriber numbers alone, as I mentioned earlier, 100% of our subscribers must have the app. They must have the app. Without the app,
you have had more than 500,000 downloads, right?
Yeah. Correct. Yeah, we have more than 500,000 downloads, right? If you look at Google Play Store, they usually say above 10,000, above 100,000, above 500,000. I think the next one is above 1 million. Hopefully, we are achieving that soon, right? So we are above 500,000. From there will be a certain percentage that will not be our customers because they just come and try and they may not get on. There will be a churn number, right, over time. So that's where we are in terms of subscriber numbers.
And how about average revenue per user or ARPU?
Okay, average revenue per user has fluctuated a bit. We are more or less industry average, so we are around the low 30s.
Low 30s, yeah, because so to give the audience a perspective, Digi is at 33, Maxis is around 40 per month, 40 ringgit per month.
We are at the low 30s.
You're the low 30s. Okay. So what have your bosses given you in Axiata in terms of targets for Yoodo for 2021 and beyond?
Well, they've given me very, very challenging targets, right? It's basically growth, right? Double the numbers last year, right?
Okay.
Double the subscriber numbers last year, and I suppose the revenue will match accordingly, right? Yeah.
The final question, given all your experiences as a business leader, as an entrepreneur, what are the top 3 management lessons that you can share with other business leaders and entrepreneurs who are watching the show right now?
Well, one is really be adaptable, right? I know the word adaptable or agile, being agile has been used a lot, but it is really the case, especially in terms of running a corporate startup or a startup, right? You just need to be able to adjust, adapt, to change according to the current situation, right? You will have a plan, right? In the beginning, you would have a direction that you will set, but you need to be able to adjust and adapt. The second thing that I think that's important is something which I just mentioned just now. When you deal with, I suppose, your colleagues, your peers, right, or a team, you have all sorts of characters, idiosyncrasies, right? And it's important to be able to manage that. Not everyone is going to be the same as you. Not everyone's going to be the same as each other. And you wouldn't want to have everyone the same, right? Because then you have only one set of direction, right? And that's the part where I mentioned earlier that it's about really looking at their strengths. I suppose I learned this also with my mentors when I was much younger in my career. It's about really working on the strengths. Everyone will have their weakness, but at the same time, you can help improve their weakness. You can talk to them. You can send them for training programs, right? You can give them on-the-job training and so on. But I think it helps that you work on the strengths. Then that's where they will also be happy about it. Right? And finally, it's also about resilience. It's about perseverance, right? You will, in anything that you do, not even in a corporate startup or startup kind of environment, there will be ups and downs. And especially for our case, it fluctuates a lot. You will need to persevere. I think that's very important. If you can persevere, you get through tough times, good times will come, then there will be a cycle again, and you will need to push on, right? So it's about that. Then you show that you can persevere, your team will tend to also latch on to that, right? They know that it's tough, but we will get through it.
Takman, thank you very much for taking your time to be on the show.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for inviting me.
Now, I'm Brian Fernandez, and I've been speaking to Chow Takman, the head of Yoodo, on Biztech's CEO Conversation Show. This video will be on our Facebook and our LinkedIn sites, as well as our website, www.biztech.asia. Please like and subscribe to our various platforms. Thanks a lot for tuning in.